Another track here is Through the Maelstrom, Leviathan theme in Final Fantasy XIV. Yeah, interesting track. It's quite fascinating, really, because it is it's a mix and match of different tracks. It has this sort of tense, definitely video game soundy rock track at the start, and then it goes into I don't know if it's British punk or American rock / punk, but it goes into that section. It's like, wow, it reminds me of Sonic. It gets Sonic Adventure vibes on it for some reason. Not sure how exactly. It's very fascinating, and I just love the amount of sections it has, the guitar solos. It's also pretty clean recording, I think, from what I could tell. Yeah, it's also just a really fun track. The sounds of it. It does sound fun to play. I can't remember if I played it. Yeah, it's just one of those things. It's a good track, and whenever I hear it in game, when I have the music on, so I can turn it on and off with a macro. Fun fact, actually, about Final Fantasy XIV. But I do enjoy listening to this one. Same with some of the other primals. This is a great track too, unsurprisingly. It's obviously, it's just a really good one. I don't really know what else to say. I don't think it's better than others, but it's definitely good still. Yeah, it's a definitely recognisable track as well. Also, farming this one. Ugh. I remember farming it in the, say early days, but it's 7.1, 7.2. And doing Blue Mage and stuff on that, and also for the amount, a bit annoying at times, especially the first phase. It's so fucking bad. You have to kill a Leviathan very quickly to get past it in the first bit, otherwise you have to wait about a minute before it comes back up. There's so many annoying bits like that in the game, but at least you have this track to bind you down, sort of. So it does help a bit, I suppose. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add, I think, to this. It's another great track, and I believe it's recorded by the Primals, if I'm not mistaken. They're actually the game's sort of band soundtrack. I don't know. I don't know the official term, actually. I'm familiar with the Primals. I'm pretty sure they are like a Final Fantasy sort of band. I could be wrong. Yeah, again, this is a great track, so let's move on to the first topic. Well, I changed my priorities. It's like one of the first times my mind actually kicked into action. How much sleep did I even fucking get? Is that whatsoever that impacted it on? Because I definitely slept a bit more. Come on, update you piece of shit. Apparently only 5 hours, which I don't feel like it is because I definitely slept more. 1 to 2 or 3 in the morning. 2 hours, and then 3:13 to 22. Something ain't right. Also, I didn't wake up to my alarm. The alarm doesn't work. I have my headphones off and stuff. It's annoying because the alarm doesn't go through my headphones. I don't know. It's weird. It is loud enough. I know that. But what the fuck? Yeah, maybe sleep didn't impact it. Maybe it's just anxiety and stuff. I sort of had a panic last night about the state of the world and getting the things that I essentially want / need in life. And it's kind of a struggle, because I really need to see how things go. I don't know how to explain this. It is weird. Yeah, the problem is I needed to pay some things off, and I managed to catch up, I believe. There's some weirdness around it, because I get letters really late for these things I need to pay off. I don't know what the deal with it is. It's kind of confusing. I don't exactly understand what the logic is there. Look, what the fuck is going on with this? But yeah, either way I have to sort of pay it off. The problem is it puts me in a worse financial situation as well, and on top of that, it gives me time, now that I've obviously directed it to that, it gives me time to pay as well as sell the things I need to sell. And it will be beneficial in the long run. You know, I'm selling 2 instruments, on going through different places and running out of time. Actually, I need to start tracking this. You might hear me jam a bit in the background, and that's because I'm learning this track and finally recording covers. So yeah, it's very weird, but I just need a way out, I think. Just trying to figure things out, and that's what's becoming the motive for trying to solve these issues. That's basically about it for that. But it's also allowing me to better manage finances, and I'm getting on the ball with this sort of thing, because it was causing me a lot of panic and sleepless nights. And it really just came as a spur of the moment thing, even though I potentially could never get a PC again. Despite this, my PC still works, to be fair. And I think that's also a reason. It's bad, but it still works, so to speak, at which I need to give it some air, because I need to, for some reason, fucking give it its own fan now, because I don't know how to put another one in. This is like a, God, imagine that if there was one detachable that you could put on the outside of the front USB, because I think the USB-C still works. But a fan that can act like a case fan on the front of it would be really good, I think. Also, I need to be careful to do this fan. Yeah, but basically that's the gist of it. I managed to stop compulsive spending, essentially. It's sort of compulsive, I wouldn't say it is complete compulsive spending, because I think there's a difference. I think there's a common misconception as well, and unfortunately I do sort of become that category of person, I think, when it comes to sort of expenditure. It's like, are you buying what you need or not? And in my case, some of the things are not like yes and no. It's really complicated. Honestly, it takes balls to even admit that sort of thing. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's weird. And basically I've cancelled out the guitar, the bass and the PC altogether, which is a big change, I think. And again, it gives me time to prepare for when I do want to get them. And the PC thing, I still think I'm finalising on those aspects of specs, rather specifications and aspects. I was thinking of downgrading to something, but the problem is the RAM is non-negotiable because of how it interacts with the processor, and I'm not sure if even 2 kits are enough. That's the problem. Because I wanted to go with a smaller kit, but it's not seemingly possible, because you need like CL28 on like the lower specs of megahertz or whatever. But the PC Specialist doesn't even offer that, so it's a bit complicated. So that annoys me, and then I have to get the RGB version for some fucking reason. Even though I don't want it, I don't want RGB. It's stupid, and then I have to get the expensive graphics card so it doesn't fucking overheat my system. I thought about getting a 5070, but even then I need the tie, and that's a bit more expensive, TI. But that's because of the performance to price ratio, and the 9070 XT is a budget option of all things, and unfortunately the type of card is different. There's like hundreds of pounds of difference in them, which is annoying. Storage is the same thing. The power supply I'm confused about, because also, why are they saying CX series or modular? Because I have modular fucking components. What the hell? It's dumb. Go with modular. Yeah, it's so weird. I don't know what this means with the Arctic Liquid Cooler having TDP. It's a bit weird. Like, what does it mean anyway? Because it's the only thing that has it. I think. Is it? On the list, no, it doesn't really. It's not even got RGB, so I don't know. I want to look this up though. Arctic Liquid Cooler 363 TDP. It does draw power. What does it mean? What do you mean by that? The fuck is this site? It's already got pop-up on it and I've got ads disabled. Fuck off, I don't want this. Piss off, it's a shit site. Cooper, awful site. It can fuck off. No PC specialist for some reason listing that. I don't know. I wonder if there's like comparisons and stuff, because the thing is, I was thinking of going all out on components just to obviously have that luxury and see what it's like getting an Ambience Pro mid case instead of the standard Meshify. But then I realised all the extra parts probably lead to more heating, and even just a small amount I can feel, so what's the point? So I better not give in to that. I'm trying to find out what is the TDP though, what does it mean exactly, because you're not powering a fucking GPU here. I can't figure it out. Templates are because what the hell is this site? Sponsored though, that's why. RGB review, I'll look at the reviews and tech power up on this site actually. I don't know, is it calling me? I'm gonna think of something else, that old GPU I had. Yeah, Arctic Liquid, oh yeah, the fucking wattage from that, Jesus. What does it even mean though, the wattage? Because if that impacts it, then your computer needs more, doesn't it? Wait a minute. Maybe that's why my PC has been struggling. I've got this crappy, I think it's like H100 or something from Corsair, and it's not good. The Arctic Liquid Cooler is on the cooler side for things, which are good. But the ND light's on there. Kind of considering these options. There's no ND on PC Specialist. So look at Corsair Link and NZXT. It'd be weird having an NZXT thing in a non-NZXT case. Corsair just ain't on these lists for Intel CPU temperature. Or even... Why aren't they doing AMD? Good question. This isn't even a fucking AMD CPU. That's useless. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird how it draws so much power. Hopefully they fucking test that, because it's kind of concerning. Do AIO coolers need more power? PSU. Upgrading CPU, not sure. CPU cooler, not sure if it upgrades. No, because it's more likely that 34 can Duo can cool the CPU. It's drawing up to 200 watt power. What? I don't know again. I'm not sure what that means, but yeah. CPU won't even draw 100 watt. Oh, okay. So CPU is like the least of the worries, it seems, and it's just a cooler that needed a lot more work. Which also kind of explains why this kind of runs like shite. Also, I've changed my option for bass because I said I was getting a Cork guitar. Also got the air purifier, I can remove that. Yeah, again, the Cork KX508 MS2. It's going to be a great recording guitar, I think, and it's going to be interesting to learn because I want to try and learn thump on it. Because obviously the bass strings are on there, almost bass strings. So how do you hook it through the holes with a giant ass string? Good question. Not sure what that's like. Also, this guitar reminds me a lot of Ibanez Iron Label guitar I had, which I then eventually sold it was a decent guitar. I actually used it as a 8-string replacement. I tuned it to F sharp with heavy gauge strings. It worked okay. It wasn't the best though. It's a bit shit. It's getting it through the hole. It doesn't seem like there's much on that. Also, how did people keep getting these such clean tunings? Like, I've wrapped them around the tuners many times, the strings. I don't know how they get it so clean. I could see a bit of the heavy gauge one actually sticking out, and the same with the one above that. Just about though, it's very hard to see in the image. I never understand how people do it, like wrap it around and stuff, and my bass is like a mess because it's got the slide tuner. Ugh. But anyway, I changed the bass option. I was going to go for a BTB, but I might as well go with a EHB instead. It seems to sound fine. But I decided to get something that sort of isn't 6-string, by the way. Might as well. Whilst it's there. But it's also got a theme. I'm trying to match a theme with all my guitars, and that is just to represent aspects of nature. So it's sort of like a part of the world. I've got a bass that looks like water. I've got a guitar that I did have a guitar that looks like it was underwater. I've got this X guitar, which is basically humanity, I guess, like artificial sort of shit. And then my Skirvison is like representing the land and the beach and water, obviously. And then this cork guitar, land, earth. And obviously the bass will just represent, I guess, rocks and stuff. It's weird, I like having the theming there, because I think it's kind of cool. Especially as I'm quite climate motivated as well. I think it's kind of a cool thing to sort of represent. Anyway, and I was thinking about like the Topaz version of the BTV, but I decided not. But again, I'm changing options up here, and I think that's the best option for me. Being able to get this sort of, yeah, like under wraps. Yeah, I was trying to learn chords, but I can't remember. I was doing synth first. And the way I learn chords, actually, I've got a tuner on the left always detached in the corner. It's out of the way, but I can learn by looking at the notes. And then that'll teach me how to play it exactly. I'd want notes to play, and I'll just try and match it the same way I've learned tabs, basically, before. I mean, not learn them well, that's the difference. I didn't learn them well back then. Just doing the synth. And yeah, so I got like an E, that's laggy. There's a harmony going there. God, this is going to be a bit weird to play. Actually, I did figure out a way to play it. It's like this, I think. It's got like the F in it. Was it an F? Sometimes I recall there being an F chord in this, but no. Yeah, first it went like this. And something like this. And it's supposed to go like this. Yeah, this track is strange though. It's not an unusual track to cover, but I think it's going to be hard to learn. I sort of plan on having like some sort of system like I have with my other music. It's like trying to make it as close to my own as I can. So it's like, how do I even play it anyway? Yeah, that's it. Did like the first E, and then I'll probably change it a bit. Try and do this maybe. It's a learning process, again I'm not used to it. Also, why is it saying I'm like 10 hertz over the thingy, or 10, whatever those are. 10 pluses. Yeah, maybe it's live. Anyway, I think I better move on because I really have to lock in for this shit. It's crazy, but I did it. I overcome that fucking urge to just spend. And yeah, I'm not sure when this situation is going to get better. I know that when I've paid off the Skirvison, it will no doubt give me a bit more money and a bit more time as well. Again, selling things will be the best way forward, because if I'm planning to move as well, I think that's absolutely necessary. So I should just get rid of a lot of things and sell, because I shouldn't be just holding on to shit, especially in this day and age. And it's going to be difficult to sell because obviously the cost of living, I think that's just going to be unavoidable. But hopefully something will come of it. I think my most sort of profitable things to sell will sell well, I think. I'm trying to think what else I could do. I've got a table to sort of give away. With a remote, actually, that's a good point. I'll do a remote somewhere because it came with an LED thing, I think. This is it, actually. So these are tons of other things, which is really fucking annoying. It no longer works. Unless I'll just turn it off and run out of battery. This probably might be ready. Let's turn it off. If you want to work, I don't know. It's annoying, I have so many fucking remotes. On it either. Maybe this one. I can't figure it out. I don't know what it is. I don't know what this one is, it's actually the one that didn't work. Yeah. It's just going to be a process, I think, over the next few weeks. Things to do, and obviously I have to stop by August because I've got an important appointment which requires a camera going up my arse, which is not fun. But I don't really care. I put things on my arse all the time. But it's not really a big deal. Just think that it's annoying, it's really inconvenient. But yeah, I don't really know what else to add. So let's move on. One of the other interesting factors of my life, given that I have a higher sense of justice, is that I just want to be as more of a person as I can. And if there ever comes a point where I've actually committed a crime, I see no point in fighting back against it unless it's obviously falsified. And obviously that's like a very important thing to mention, because that's only if there's an unless clause in that. But what makes me think of this is realising how many evil people there are in the UK when it comes to the far right, and obviously the billionaire class and trillionaire classes is the recent one. And I think it's really important because we need to have transparency, and I think one of the worst things you can do, especially for people on the far right, if they actually believe in protecting women and children, is just to lie about everything. It's one of the worst fucking things you can do, and if anything, and this is the thing I'm going to start saying, it harms more women and children to lie, because that's going to lead them down a further path of what we're apparently seeing, which is increased sexual violence, domestic violence, and murders, on top of much other abuse. That's only exemplified by the reality we're in, which is if you misrepresent information, it will literally become the information, but in a different way. I don't know how to explain it exactly. But it's really harsh because that is what's going on here. The world is completely fucked, and I know that. But the worst thing you can do is lie. And for people on the far right who actually believe in having positive change, they need to do their absolute best to avoid problems. So if they are, for example, someone who's been convicted of a crime, they need to do their best to find redemption by not being on the far right. Because the thing with the far right is that it is associated with all these crimes. They're more common on the right, and I'm pretty sure there are studies on this. Because it isn't just like a us versus them sort of thing. I'm not even a leftist by my own standards, or even socialist. I'm just socialist by the evidential standards. It's not a personal belief, it is literally the evidence that is displayed before us and out there to find, that everyone can find. And it's really important. So I think that has to be mentioned. So when it comes to that, if you've just been released from prison, or if you have real issues, you go to a doctor or you hand yourself in to the police, who can then probably refer you to someone, and they'll be able to help you with getting recovery for whatever it is. If you're a violent person, they could probably help you with violence. It's not going to be a foolproof strategy, but it's one that you might as well take. That's the first step towards being better. But the next step is obviously, if you do slip up, or if you do fuck up, or are just an awful person, just being transparent about things is probably one of the best things you can do. To literally confess, to literally admit to all these things. And this is why I think it's important when it comes to, if I, for example, was, I don't know, maybe arrested for donating to Greenpeace, because I actually do. I didn't realise I had the donation because I only got a notification about it today. I was like, oh, I didn't calculate that because it didn't appear on my list or on my bank statement. Just weird, because it should. You know, if they deem Greenpeace a terrorist organisation, well, then I'm kind of screwed, aren't I? You know, I'm giving money to them. But the thing is, I'm happy to give money to them, that's my choice. And I give money because they do a good job, they have a good cause there, albeit if it is for like reasons beyond my own. But, you know, I'll just admit to it. And let's say there's even like a worse crime there or something. I would actually happily admit to that as well, given that I know what I did, what I've done. And I just want to make sure I'm not taking up space, time or resources for inherently evil people, which is also another good thing you can do. Just to get rid of all this fucking bullshit in the world at the moment, to literally get the right people in prison so that this crap just stops happening. You know, what do I even say? What do I even add to this? Because this is just the gist of it. I really do think that this is a thing that people need to start doing, and if they don't, then what the fuck are you doing, honestly? Because I think the world would benefit from better transparency, these sort of things. So it is really important. And then for also people on the right, the best thing you can do is try and become a socialist, literally. I think that's the best thing. Ooh, just sips of streaming, make a chameleon. Gonna watch that. Sorry. But, you know, this is important. I can't stress enough how important it is. If you really want to protect people, if you really have your heart in the right place, do the right thing. Confess. Rat out people who have done awful things as well. Whilst you're at it, you'll do the world a fucking favour. And not to mention the UK as well. That's really important. So I think people need to start doing this and acknowledging it. Which is also why I've said I don't want to waste the time of other people, because it is important. Again, I care about people. I said I didn't have any sort of personal reasons for being socialist, and that is true. But from this perspective, an evidential perspective, I'd rather do the right thing in these situations. I'd amend for what I've done, atone for it, whatever you call that, and just do the right thing. That's just the core of my belief here, about doing the best thing possible so that others can benefit. So yeah, what do I even say? Again, people on the right are far more likely to have committed these crimes, and it's very ironic when obviously go to these protests is obviously to protect themselves. I think that's the main thing. They think that for some reason siding with these people is protection, but it's not. Or it's like a distraction, but again, it's not. Like, you're completely idiotic if you actually think that it helps you. And if anything as well, I have to mention this. If we take the socialist perspective and the evidential point of view and the way to run things, we actually see more benefits towards people like this, which sounds weird, but hear me out. I think as long as we take a pro-science perspective, people with domestic issues, or it could be victims, by the way, but people with domestic issues, people with whatever it is, could be even paedophilia, could even be paraphilias, will be more likely to get the treatment under a socialist fucking government. It's a no-brainer. Well, funding for health services means better evidence, better practices. And that will just end up being beneficial in the long run. And, you know, you might be one of those people who are maybe like, oh, I don't want to change, it feels good, or something. It's just fucking disgusting for starters. But you need to understand that it's just far better to be away from that. It's better for your life. You have plenty more things to live for rather than the thing you're supposedly fighting for here, which is obviously wrong. But there's so much more to do with your life. It's just absolutely ridiculous. So it really is important to do that. Yeah, I don't really know what else to add. I've pretty much explained everything, I think. So yeah, hopefully people take that advice on board, because it is pretty important. So yeah, anyway, let's move on. So here's a quickie for you. Just unzip yourself and zip yourself back up, because it's not that kind of fucking... What are you on about? Anyway, I wanted to talk about this thing I thought of about social media sort of ban and controlling in the UK. And it's, as usual, it's sickening, it's unnecessary, it's pretty much the same old spiel, whatever you say. And it's the same issues that come about as of like realising it and stuff. But I have to say, someone who's been on the internet for quite a while now, since like at least 2008, I was probably into it. I was watching YouTube back then, even when it's first out there. We had a star system to rate the videos. I still remember that. Yes, very old. I had an old account on there as well. But the thing is, the internet creates idiots and geniuses, and you cannot avoid that, no matter what. It's always going to be the way. You're not going to avoid this shit, and I think it's pathetic when you consider that the government are trying to censor it and seemingly trying to control it, to control what information there is out there. But the thing is, you're not going to do the control you think you are. For places where it's already happened, I don't think they even care. They just don't use social media, full stop. And smart people will naturally find ways to send like hidden messages and stuff around social media, meaning that it never goes away. So it's always going to be a thing. There's always going to be smart people in there, and if that's what you're trying to control, you won't. But it's the same with stupid people, because their upbringings will lead them to different things. They'll have grandparents that believe conspiratorial shit. I know firsthand what that's like. And you'll believe so many different things that just aren't real. But those sort of people are either stuck in their own ways, stubborn, or just really gullible. And I think the best way to counter it is to dismantle and educate them, obviously, on this, but dismantle their pre-held belief. Because this shit is dangerous, as it should be. To believe any sort of misinformation is in itself a danger. So the internet equally creates idiots and geniuses. And it's thanks to the internet we even have things like climate science, which we can understand, and even have it presented in a way we can understand, even without having been through the entire sphere of it, like, for lack of a correct term. But to learn about something, it requires time and effort, and it's something that you can't necessarily get from university. Sometimes, actually, as I've heard, in, for example, the medical field, when someone trains to become a doctor, they're not actually taught anything about nutrition, and as a result, people end up sort of failing to understand it. And then you get stupid recommendations like eat fish for your omega-3s, even though fish is like fucking terrible for your health, I think. You even get things like eat more meat for nutrients, and it's just blatant misinformation and lobbying. And that's why the internet is so important as a resource. It can even dismantle pre-held beliefs, wherever they may be. So it actually does benefit you in the long run to have an open internet. Which is why I find these sort of bans incredibly stupid. It just does not help anyone. And then people who are wondering what their issue is, for example, if we look at, say, a Google search or even just a startup search, whatever search engine you use, you need to be able to find an issue to understand where to begin. Because back when I got cellulitis, I was wondering why the fuck was my leg weird? Why was it hurting to stand on? Why did it look like it was about to be fucking amputated because it was so sick looking? I was just wondering what it was, and I looked at a bunch of the symptoms of what could be, and because it's in such an unusual location, I just wasn't sure. So I did some research, and it turns out that I had cellulitis based on the images, but I needed that confirmed by a doctor so I could treat it, because all I needed was antibiotics. So I went to the doctor, didn't say anything about it, I just said I had an issue with my leg, looked at it, and they're just like, oh yeah, cellulitis. That's how effective the internet is. In a way, it teaches GPs as well, I think, which is good. But again, it's quick to diagnose things, and that's why you can't necessarily control the narrative. If people don't understand the symptoms for COVID, or for like something like hantavirus, which was a thing recently, and even the explosive diarrhea virus, for example, I'll show if I can get into the UK. People need to know the symptoms. And that's the importance of the internet. It's why you can't control the information to begin with. And that's why it can be invaluable, even if misused and misguided. And even then, it's like a case of mental health. Like, if people are just using it poorly, then that's their own issue. Like, I still remember watching, and it sort of relates to a darker topic, but not suitable for live content, and one of the clips that happened around a few years ago, I think, was like a mosque shooting, and it was quite horrific because a lot of the people were like laying down already, sort of praying, and obviously this caught them off guard and they weren't sure. Some were still sitting up, kind of like, what's that? And they got fucking shot for it. And you look at like the sort of manifesto that the shooter had, and it's like, this guy believed that they were actually like fucking Satan. It was nuts. He's even shooting people who were already lying down. He made sure to fucking kill them. Which is just nuts. But it's kind of like the issue. We need the internet for this reason, and then for journalism, which I think is important too, we need that to show what obviously people have discovered. I've always been an advocate for open footage because it really clouds judgment when the footage is obviously given to the police and then they censor it. They redact it, they censor it, and then you don't see what happens. That's why I've always sort of been pissed off about certain topics. I remember one years ago in the US about, I think, someone called Regan Russell, and she was an animal rights activist who got run over by a truck, essentially, one of their trucks carrying the animals. And there was so much fucking hate comments about it, and I was just thinking, like, what the fuck are you on about, you idiots? Like, there's no definitive proof about this. You didn't, like, people are saying she should have checked the road then. That's not what fucking happened. Because if it was that, she would have. But you look at the footage and it's still not even clear. It's on that. The fuck is going on? Is that outside? That's weird. I don't know what just happened there. A kid died or something? What the fuck? I'm not gonna look at what that is. I don't like these neighbours. They're always fucking weird, but anyway. Yeah, looking at the footage for Regan Russell, and there was like very much no sort of easy way to make judgment, and I think they showed the footage and stuff, and it wasn't clear even then what happened. It was censored, which is fair enough. But the only thing you can see is like after and not the before, which is really important. Then we all had this debate about whether she was struck by the truck or she walked in front of the truck to be struck. So it's very hard to determine, and we can't even criminalise the drivers because we have no evidence. And then this is why we have this footage to begin with, and why I feel like the people there did an injustice to Regan Russell and the truck driver equally, because it showed no transparency. That's the thing with the internet, it's a benefit to have transparency. That's why I always encourage people to post the footage of an actual crime, whether it's dark or not. You literally need to, because it's fucking ridiculous how many can get away with this shit. I'm not saying the truck driver got away with this, I don't know exactly what happened. I think he was in prison actually, after the fact. There's like a documentary on this as well. But we can't be like too quick to judge. And that's the point of a free internet. That's why you can't censor it. And if people are posting videos of police in the UK, for example, doing very suspicious things or being corrupt, that's fair. It's called a fair and free fucking internet. It's part of the reason it's there. Even with the worst of humanity, like the body cam footage, as I said, the mosque shooter. You see that all the time. Yeah, it's unavoidable and you're not going to get rid of it. So long as there's always a country running the internet and social media, there's always going to be that sort of stuff. There's no such thing as censoring it. So I just find it frankly ridiculous. So again, internet makes smart and dumb people equally. That's just not going to change. Not anytime soon, especially in my time of being on the internet. Nope. It's definitely not changing anytime soon. Anyway, don't know if I have anything else to add, to be honest. Yeah, so I think I shall move on and watch some more BBC Ghosts, which is also another benefit of the internet, by the way. Being able to watch a TV show, it's just great. So yeah, let's move on. So I drew out an anti-loneliness, well actually more like a loneliness denier, a loneliness epidemic denier. I'm not actually sure what the term is, but there was a post on Bluesky. I gave a response to it because I feel like I had some important insight, basically explaining that we just seem to have many issues as it currently stands with the loneliness epidemic and just how badly it affects people. And it's not even being acknowledged properly, because I've seen this meme before. It's basically the meme where there's a person on the bike is putting a stick through it. They're saying the guy is like using conservative values and blames rather, actually no, it's not blame, it's saying out my loneliness epidemic. And it's sort of a straw man in a sense because it's not even the full truth. It's sort of hard to label it as a straw man fallacy because of the fact there is truth to it, but it's also kind of false. And obviously that means what you think it means, where there is actually an issue here. Because I've explained my part of the story where before I couldn't even get relationships because I was just too quiet, just too awkward, and just too unattractive to people. And I don't know if it's necessarily my fault or what. It's hard to determine. But either way, the fact this meme is a thing is just strange in its own way because it's misleading. I just think it's very in bad taste towards people who are going through the loneliness epidemic as a result of other factors, meaning not conservative values. They are very much a factor for some people, but for most it's something else entirely, and many people reflect this, especially in leftist spaces, and even socialist spaces, which I could speak. But this is essentially where it's coming from, and it's also part of this place where it's actually responsible, because there are well-meaning people out there, and I'm pretty sure they get missed a lot because a lot of the time to certain people it's like, oh, they're not attractive enough, or they're not loud enough, not speaking enough or anything, not even having a good first impression. There's all these fucking judgments passed along, like they're like speed running the judgments basically. The people who complain about this issue of like some men being like unattractive or not dateable. There's just so many problems around this shit, and it is tiring to see the arguments come up again, and also straw mans, as we've seen. And this seems to have drawn out people who, despite me explaining my story about how being quiet has been negative for me in terms of relationships and friendships, I drew out some people. I wouldn't say tons, it's just one guy mainly, and then one sort of sharing a similar experience. But it does draw out the obviously, like this post really, it's sort of like it's denying a loneliness epidemic in a sense, because it's denying one part of it, which very much is real. And I'd replace the meme with a case of like, sadly it applies to women here, so obviously take that as you will, but it is about oftentimes how women view other men in these spaces. So there's a case where many just seem to want the funniest, most attractive looking guy, or just the one who's got the best first impressions. And obviously I'd replace the meme with that. Something like that, maybe like born a quiet guy, socialist and leftist, how loneliness epidemic. Yeah, it kind of works both ways. So it is obviously an issue. It goes without saying. But I do think it warrants more of a discussion because this is becoming a problem, such a big problem. Yeah, I'll read out the comment that I've got on this because I think it's somewhat interesting. So it's not the most informative, but it's very bad taste. I'll read out one of them. One of them, sort of cover it up for a bit of privacy, but one of them was saying how they joined a group where they met lots of people and just sort of like similar interests sort of thing, but they finished later rather than sooner, and a lot of the people had left by that point, and only managed about one relationship in that time, it seems, from meeting people, which is one of the best ways to meet someone. And it also shows that you don't get enough time to meet the right people in these cases, which this comment very much pointed out, and it is a shame. And the comment was complaining about this, obviously. So it is one of the aspects. It's very much reality. But then there's one that responded to mine, saying, and this is why I think there's like a literal denier of this, really. Someone already had a response to it, but here's what they said to me. Okay, but like, whining like this in public is part of the problem. This is a sentiment for your therapist or a journal, it's off-putting. I was in therapy for 2 fucking years, moron. For issues like this, for reasons that obviously I can't go into, but anxiety, OCD, being quiet. I was in therapy, CBT, for 2 fucking years, and it didn't help one bit. What are you on about? It's one of these people who delude themselves into thinking therapy is the answer to everything. Even then, I've done journals before as well, and it doesn't help. It doesn't change the situation, it doesn't suddenly make me feel like talking to someone, because there is nobody to talk to. That's been one of my issues since leaving school. I just haven't been able to talk to many people. Even the friends I have made, there's fortunately some stuck by me, but I don't know so much, especially these days, I don't know. You know, some do stick by me, and that's good. I'm always grateful for that. But, you know, I'm not making relationships with this sort of shit. And it's obviously a big detriment, and it's probably a comment on my character as it is, really. And also, you realise that me being quiet is one of the most unattractive things to someone, and in fact, it's pretty much said in like other spaces and other shows. I think I remember a TV show, Ted Lasso, commenting on it for some reason, because one of the characters is quiet and shy and turns out to be a bad guy, and it's like, why? Someone in this show who was writing it clearly had a thing out for quiet people, and it just wasn't good. It's a terrible fucking representation of a quiet person. Although funny in areas, it's definitely well executed some places. But to make them a bad guy is just like kind of shitty. That's always played on my mind. It being a quiet person myself who's also been interpreted not creepy. That's a difference though. But I've never really been interpreted as creepy before. It's just that people say that they don't like the fact that I'm quiet. But I have had people tell me it is creepy because that's how people generally view it. That's obviously an issue. But yeah, like, responding to this comment again, I'm not whining about it necessarily, I'm trying to enlighten people. And I literally responded with something that's pretty irrefutable now, because it's just who I am now. But I've come to terms with it, not being able to get a relationship ever, and not even being able to hold it. I've had 4 relationships in my life with 4 different people, I should say. Some who started with that since school. And it's not really ever worked out for me that well. It took me so long to realise that the issue actually was kind of myself, because of my problems. Because I just didn't have a good start in life and didn't have good advice either. Like, essentially, I was told about women being very sort of sexualised and stuff, but it wasn't a great sort of bit of advice for me. And I didn't even know I was like bisexual or anything, so growing up I had no clue. I didn't know what I was thinking about boys that way, and what do you know, I found out as an adult what that meant, and it's quite an awakening. But yeah, like I said, basically I'm not compatible. I have OCD, I have autism, I have anxiety, and I'm not suitable for all relationships, and people actually like that comment, which is interesting. They like the other one, but this comment I think got more, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. Actually no, there's more on the original comment and then some on the other one about coming to terms, so exactly that. Someone was having a discussion with this other guy, which I could read out, saying like, yeah, but boys are supposed to be tough and help themselves or die. We can't talk about girls suffering openly, but boys' problems are off-putting. So it's someone else who commented, oh yeah, the other one. Yes, we do not create spaces for kids to socialise properly under adult supervision. And after they graduate from school or university and they hardly meet new people, I helped a guy from my job find a girl, and it was hard. Yeah, I guess so. About boys being tough and being forced to help themselves or die. Again, I've helped myself, and people keep accusing me of not getting help. I just do. In fact, it gets me really depressed thinking about it, because I've tried many things and it just doesn't work. That's why I think the people saying about therapy is just really dumb. It's really bad misinformation. It's disinformation, actually. That's, I think, far worse. Because it's literally misguiding people. It won't help you as long as the issue cannot be helped by therapy. It's like throwing, like, I don't know, it's like something at a wall. It's like soft at a wall, like a cushion, like, you're just breaking the cushion. Over time, you're not breaking the wall, you're breaking the fucking cushion. That's the equivalent of this. Yeah, as for spaces for kids, I did go to groups actually. I had like badminton after school, I tried that for a while. Yeah, weird fact, I used to play badminton, if you could believe it. But I think the guy was a bit of a creep, he was trying to correct my posture a bit. I don't know if he was like sticking his pee-pee on my bum, I don't know. I've never really talked about that before. It's very weird, I didn't like the contact. But for the most part he did respect the space for some time of it. But I never went into like changing rooms or anything. That was always like a no-go for me. I never liked them. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird situation. But I've also been to like an autism club, and that was okay. Actually, I sort of found out that there was an autistic girl who liked me. I was always wish I dated her, but it's embarrassing in school because we were like a 4-year age gap, and also you don't really want that. It's your reputation. But it also sort of makes you look like a pedo, so no. So then no, and I did try to contact her actually, sort of after I left college, because I was kind of thinking like, after she's gone to college and stuff, maybe there's a chance. Because a 4-year age gap as a young adult is not too big. Not too big. I wouldn't do 16 or 17, but 18, sure. That's when also I can give it a try, but I never was able to contact her, sadly. But I do sort of worry she's turned out to be like, given her interest, it's kind of been like one of those girls, like, I don't know, but she was somewhat nice. Anyway, more comments. So the first one, was it first or second one, I don't know. Yeah, the one that sort of talked about whining. Leave aside how being whiny isn't the same thing as discussing something productively. I wonder if there's anything different about being a woman that might inform a difference in how we address things. I don't understand what this is saying. Leaving aside how being whiny isn't the same thing as discussing something productively. I don't know, was I being whiny? I'm kind of curious, actually. I'll look at the original comment. Which is true, but affects every side, sadly. Being especially a guy was old enough, people quiet, and that's unattractive and creepy. People also got to understand nobody's perfect. I somehow had relationships in my life. I just didn't see how compatible it was with life as a whole. Yeah, very depressing comment by me. But that's the thing with this. Yeah, it wasn't really whining, it's more like discussing it. I was pointing out something actually, it's just very important, it affects every side of the spectrum, whether it's politics, whether it's disability, or disability especially is treated badly. A lot of people think that those in wheelchairs can't even fucking have a sex life, or even those without limbs. It's just disgusting. And I happen to know someone who's actually been able to be successful with that. I won't say who, but there is someone out there. And they're quite fortunate for that, I think. Obviously it's a good thing that they've managed to find success, even though that's not the correct term for this, but it is in a way a success. So yeah, again, it does affect people differently. And it can affect every side of anything. Anyway, as a response again to that comment about the whiny thing, oh yeah, being a woman and falling, I forgot to address that. It does matter what a woman thinks, but I would say I can only share my experiences as a cisgender guy. that's the only thing I can share. Exactly non-binary, but except also male, I guess. I've shared those experiences, and it's to be listened to, not to be judged, really. It's you can judge it, obviously. Again, it's very hard to speak on behalf of women, though, because obviously I'm not a woman. But I've heard plenty of experiences through people close to me, and also just being around online. It's just really fucking nuts. The amount of things that women go through, sadly. But they experience a lot of harassment, and I think that's partly why there's even a loneliness epidemic as well. Because nobody feels safe anymore. There's a Channel 4 documentary about it, I think, where one of the women went undercover. I don't know if it was staged, it could be, because of very specific circumstances, but literally one guy tailed her to the hotel room she was at after she was pretending to be drunk, and literally he got into the room and she asked the guy to leave when he got in, because obviously it was like really fucking creepy. There is a guy waiting in the hotel room just in case, which is important to know, but it's extremely creepy if real. And there was another one where someone just kept following her to the hotel but didn't go in, seeing security there. But again, it's really disgusting. This is partly why there's an issue. It's like women are coerced into this bullshit that men force on them. There's always men. It's never women, it's never like a non-binary person in a bizarre case. As far as I know, it's never even really a trans woman either. It's literally, it could be anyone. But somehow it's always men. Always the fucking case. And that's really where it's dangerous. And a lot of people, again, like the comment originally said, boys are supposed to be tough apparently and help themselves or die. And that's been the response to a lot of this crap. And also people keep saying as well, they justify this crap, saying boys will be boys. That was a thing that used to be very popular in the 70s, 80s and 90s, I think. But that ended up damaging the entire fucking generation. So this technically is a degeneration, I guess. That generation anyway. But it did damage an entire generation, myself, Gen Z, millennials as well probably, and also no doubt Gen Alpha is going to affect too. It's always going to be a bit sort of risky in that sense. Yeah, anyway, the other comment said, women in our society are raised with completely different expectations and social skills. Both for son and daughter, it is incredible how differently we approach both genders. Boys can't understand their feelings and are discouraged from ever talking about them. We don't care if they are safe. Outside, we don't teach them basic skills like cooking and childcare, and we leave them alone in the internet to be preyed upon by crooks and fascists. I live in Europe, but I suspect that the US, being a much more patriarchal society as it even was. Yeah, I get a like from me. Very much true. Everyone is raised on different standards. I literally just mentioned it. Again, a generational thing. Like, for example, the way women were portrayed to me was that you had to like them sexually for some reason, even though it's a Christian person saying this to me. Like, what the fuck? Again, it's really bizarre. But I was also exposed to that, and so my image of women became that, sadly. And it took me years of changing it through my own thoughts and also having my own trauma for that. Realising that actually I want to be a nicer person, so I literally trained myself. Again, I helped myself. This is a thing. I've done the right things and it hasn't paid off. Not that I care anymore. But at the time I was thinking that. But yeah, I trained myself to not just associate women with boobs, vaginas, or even just penises. For the trans women out there, I actually trained myself to get away from that and disassociate, well, not obviously entirely, but as a pansexual person, it doesn't matter the gender. So I've also tried to disassociate, same with men. I try not to use appearance as a dictating factor. I try to be open-minded. You know, there's literally I think a black person messaging me. Yeah, it sounds weird, but hear me out. But messaging me a while ago. I can't remember how we got into contact, but somehow we were talking and stuff. But he wasn't very communicative, and I also wasn't sure if he was just like baiting me or anything, because I did try to verify and stuff. Like, oh, wait, are you actually 18 years old? Because I can't be having these conversations if you're not. They said yes, and tried to interact, but nothing really came of it, and so nothing happened, and it just kind of sucks. And I wasn't even going to judge the other things that I mentioned, which I'll keep private for specific reasons, because everyone has their own likes and dislikes. But this one was definitely one I'd not even heard of. I was fine with that sort of thing. But yeah, again, it didn't work out. I've messaged plenty of men, the same thing, which is really frustrating. But yeah, everyone's still different. Definitely how you approach genders too. Again, like the comment mentioned, like boys don't understand their feelings, feel discouraged when we were talking about them. Again, I sort of had to reverse that and teach myself to be open about my feelings. I have been open and it hasn't worked, and so I'm sort of stuck. This is again why I don't exactly have much trust in people, and why the problems can't be easily solved. So it also sucks. And then also, if you talk from a young age, which I've certainly was at a certain point, to talk about it as though, as if you should be discouraged from talking about it, that is also an issue. It is such a big fucking problem. So yeah, that becomes another thing. And then you don't teach them basic skills, like, yeah, nobody's taught that. And actually, my school did try for a while to sort of teach people how to cook, teach children rather. It didn't really work. I actually bought in vegetarian mince once, because my mum used to make really good bolognese. It was just a sauce and corned mince. It wasn't anything special, but it was nice. I preferred it over the standard mince because it was less overwhelming, just tastier. But I brought that in for like cooking class once, and that was used as an example by the teachers. Like, oh, okay, it's very interesting. For some reason, we're teaching the kids about vegetarian cuisine, which is awesome. I wasn't even vegetarian at the time. That's the crazy thing. Yeah. Well, I don't know if the teacher's maybe just doing that for a laugh, or even just like vegetarian herself. Very interesting. Also, childcare. You get that experience to an extent when you have siblings, and I know that. I've had that 2 times in my life. So it does teach you things about childcare, but your experiences with your own parents also teach you that can be for good or bad. And yeah, and also that thing about leaving children alone on the internet to be preyed upon by crooks and fascists, that's very real. It always sucks when shit like that happens, and you have to be careful. When I was a kid, I didn't have to worry, really, because I'd never go out. And I never even want to date someone who's like a fucking guy, even then just pretending to be a woman. I was always trying to be careful about that sort of stuff. So it never happened to me. I never really got groomed, luckily. But it's a very real possibility these days, especially with how mentally unstable and how protected, unfortunately, these fucking evil people are. It sucks, but you need to teach children how to be safe online. That's very important. I think using like a voice changer, for example, for actual comms, so if they're playing something like Overwatch, I think that's important, especially women as well. I think a voice changer is pretty important there too, as that will protect women as well as like young girls who are playing it, if they are. I'm trying to think what other advice there is I could potentially give you. Yeah, I suppose never sharing like actual like private details, so never sharing your address, never share that, never talk about your personal life either. It's kind of like, it's not that important. But also that can reveal details and never share a fucking photo, like Jesus Christ. Even if it's like a photo of your front lawn, that's gonna dox you. You do not want to do that. And even if it's like doxing, it means that people can track you down and, you know, evil ensues. So yeah, that's like some good advice. It's also a great fucking scare tactic because it is real. This shit happens. It sucks. But you have to keep safe online. I didn't necessarily know to do that when I was young, but I think at least parents were sort of looking out for me to an extent. Sort of asking like who I was calling and stuff whenever I was, which is good. It's just like the bare minimum of policing, not being overprotective either. And I've often only ever made contact with like friends from school, which is fine. I think that was a great rule to have as well. But yeah, that's about it for the comments. I can't really see anything else from the notifications here. I thought it was interesting to mention this, to talk about aloneness epidemic again and what we're taught. I do think there's something here warranting discussion, but whether people take that on board or not is another thing entirely. They could like change the outcome and stuff, so yeah, it does play differently depending on your situation. Yeah, I don't really know what else to add, so let's move on. You know, the more and more I watch some of the body cam footage, the more I realise that drinking is a fucking cancer, and drinking rates for that matter. Yeah, I quit alcohol over a year ago now, and I feel the best I've ever been energy-wise, but there's still issues. I think it's just mental health and part of physical health as well. But it is really a cancer. Like, it's just one of the worst things in life, I think, for people. It does nothing, it solves nothing. We should just be done with alcohol, except obviously the medicinal use and, well, there's hardware uses as well. Plus isopropyl, I'm not sure if that's the same thing. But yeah, I'm finding a lot of this footage. It's terrifying when people are so drunk that they just don't act in character and they kind of forget everything. It's kind of nuts. I've seen multiple bits of footage like that. Some even resulting in fatalities. Obviously drunk driving results in many. But it's so disturbing. And people just get so fucking off their face drunk that it just gets insane. That they just have no limit, no handle or anything. And so they just fuck their lives up. And then I also think about how the amount that's spent on drinking could also just contribute to a better sort of way to help yourself if you are drinking to get away from a problem. Think about the money that you could spend on other things and how that could actually help in the long run, help other people, and obviously help yourself. That's the main point. Yeah, since I've quit alcohol personally, I've pretty much felt better. I've been having a better time with drinking things like sparkling and sparkling water flavoured. There's pretty nice ones out there. I was just opening my mind to a lot more things rather than the same old shit like a beer, like a spirit. And there's no point in drinking any of that, even on a special occasion, because there's plenty of options out there. You know, I have a San Pellegrino if I'm anywhere that offers that, and there are some pretty nice ones out there. As far as I know, it's vegan. I did try to check a long time ago, and there's a kind of hint that it is, but it's kind of a risk I'm willing to take anyway, so it's not a big deal. But obviously there's like other drinks like Coca-Cola, which sound not great, but they'll do. But you might wonder, like, you know, did I like the taste of alcohol? Yeah, some of the best tasting drinks I've ever had. But I can't justify drinking it again, and even from this perspective of trying zero alcohol, I also can't justify it. People will be surprised by that, but I literally do see the alcohol industry as almost the same evil as animal agriculture, which people might find controversial, but I think it is literally. And I think that we need to see some sort of a change to alcohol to have it basically be taxed, essentially, like become more expensive, so that people just stop being complete fucking morons with this stuff. But another thing I suppose is we maybe need like a license sort of thing, where responsible people can have like like we already have ID, that's the thing, but like an alcoholic license or something. Where if people aren't drinking responsibly, then they need to be held accountable. They should have like a license for it, sort of thing, and it also serves as an ID. I think people with that, I think it should be mandatory. And people obviously violating that, including vendors, I think should be also held accountable. There's some pretty ridiculous things that happen as a result of drinking. And if people are buying too much, it should also like flag on the system, for example, if that's even possible. And people with alcohol problems, people who've quit, should have that obviously pick up if there's like a scanner again, if that's an option. But yeah, something needs to be done about it. That much is obvious. I think it's really concerning when this issue just goes unchecked and is allowed to happen. It's all the same way I feel about guns anyway. Like, if anyone can get it, then anyone can misuse it. It's kind of how these things work, sadly, and it happens a lot in the UK with like knife crime, for example. It's pretty common here for knife crime, I believe, because everyone has access to knives. It's not like a hunting knife sort of thing. I don't think we even have that. It's more like kitchen knives and cutting knives and stuff, and we can't get rid of them, obviously. But people just misuse them and stuff, and can't be trusted with that shit. It's quite deadly as well, depending on how it's used, which in a way is almost as dangerous as guns. Even though guns are more fatal, but that's only when they land. It's only when they land in the wrong spots, or the right, depending on what the situation is. But that's why I find knives in a way a bit more dangerous, and even just short-range weapons. But the same way that alcohol can kill people, either from drinking or immunity, like, was it immunity? Immune system, that's it. Because it can impact that, I believe. And also, studies are flawed on it, as I've discovered. Apparently it's only like a study that looked at rich people in the equation of drinkers, because they only drink every once in a while. And they're like the healthiest, but only because they have better hospital treatments. So light drinkers are better, and that's why there's such an influx in the results, like why it goes from low to high to low to high again. It's pretty bad. I remember that quite well. There's a video exposing it, and sadly the video ended on a terrible conclusion that you can drink, but be careful. As if you can be careful with alcohol. So it's a bit stupid, really. But yeah, again, I think it's a cancer, and I wouldn't even support zero alcohol, even if it is appealing. I think the only thing I'd support in terms of like zero alcohol is if they just rebrand it and don't label it alcohol at all, make it something different. Kind of a bit like root beer, I guess, assuming root beer is not actually alcoholic. Yeah, I just felt like talking about this. It bothers me when I look back at the body cam footage. Again, it's one of those things where it appears in this type of content. The people who are commonly guilty of this have high blood alcohol content. It just feels so unnecessary. And then in the UK, I remember a bunch of the sort of cops on the road stuff, like road wars and I think traffic cops. I can't remember the other one actually. But a lot of them intercept like drink drivers and do the breathalyzer, and you know they're like off the fucking limits on these particular cases. And then I think there's even some where it's low, but they're still in the range to be arrested. And you know, they're not like drunk out their mind either. so again, it's not even worth it. I just see alcohol as a ticket to destruction. That's pretty much all it is. The same with a lot of these things that are misused. So yeah, it always depends on the person using it, rather than obviously the other way around. But even then, the alcohol industry just makes itself so apparent. I remember, I was listening to a sports radio. I was in one of the sports cars, I'll say, and the sports radio was on. There's quite some sporty people on. I don't really mind what I listen to on the radio, as long as it's not just crap pop like some of the radios do. There's some good radios out there. I think some of the BBC radio stations are actually decent. But yeah, sports one was on, and it's like midday, and it's advertising a fucking alcoholic brand called Carling. Well, what is going on? Why are they advertising this at midday on a fucking sports radio when kids could be listening? I'm not even sure. I think it was like a holiday, so they were showing it on like a holiday, like a half term for kids. I just don't understand it. You're also making it more appealing for kids to even try and risk getting it, to try and fake getting it. And also starting kids drinking at a young age just isn't good. It's just a terrible thing. I just don't understand what could even draw somebody to doing that, because it's not a good lesson to teach either. And also you just need to teach your kids like critical thinking or anything else, and that would also make you realise alcohol bad. No matter what. Anyway, I haven't really got anything else to answer, let's move on. So for some reason, I saw something recently, I think it's the BBC, interviewing Count Binface on a panel on Newsnight, I believe. I'm not sure if Newsnight is a BBC thing, is it? I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it's been around for a while though, I'm pretty sure of that. But it's such a dumb fucking interview, because they reveal Count Binface's real name and sort of identity, but they use that as a gotcha, like, oh my god, Count Binface is a person. Like, what? It's almost like a story you hear from Voice Critical. It's like, oh god, you just figured that out? Gee, I wouldn't have known. It's so fucking bizarre. Like, she tries to use it as a gotcha. It tries to convince people that this is ridiculous, but it's more ridiculous than they think people didn't know that. It's so fucking dumb. But that's why I hope he wins. It's like, the thing is, Count Binface is just the joke in politics. Well, not the joke, rather. It is the opposite of one. And the other ones, obviously the other politicians, are the joke. Reform, Restore, Labour, Conservatives are all a fucking joke. They're literally not there to actually do politics, and then Count Binface making a mockery of them by having such stupid rules and stuff, and it's just like, oh my god. And then someone in Parliament, as I saw recently as well, this is another interesting thing, because talking about Count Binface in, I think it's like the PMQs, I can't remember what it actually means now, it's lost on me. But they're talking about that, and you know, the Reform MP stood up and said like, oh, we're not going to be beaten by a bin. Something like that. It was so fucking dumb, and then someone rightfully stood up and just responded like, yeah, well, at least they're not like recycling politicians, which is pretty fucking... That's a good response from Starmer. Actually, Starmer who said that. But yeah, it's pretty crazy though, that they're actually addressing him, and, you know, Keir Starmer also said to vote Count Binface, which is good. I think he can say the right thing sometimes, obviously it's not common. It's one thing I've noticed about Starmer, it's like he takes opportunities to make jabs at people as long as it's not in their political interests. But other times he'll just, yeah, he'll be tone deaf and be a cunt, essentially, for lack of a correct term. because that's all he's ever been to this country, sadly. You know, he put this on himself, as well as his buddies who essentially enforced that. So, again, it's such a fucked up situation we're in, and weird enough, Keir Starmer is part of the joke. That's the thing, he's part of these joke politicians because he was the one who made this happen. He made Reform stand up and do this shit. He made Camp Binface a thing, even more popular of. He's actually been here for quite a few years, I've noticed. Like since the start of COVID. But yeah, it's quite fascinating really, and honestly, I think they should just overturn the rule where if he becomes an MP, if Camp Binface becomes MP, just allow him to fucking walk in there with a bin on his head. It might be distracting, it might be funny, it could definitely get a lot of attention. But it's a fucking joke that they have to have all this formality in politics. As if that ever solved anything. Like a place to be strict and treated like a court of law, which it's not a lot of the time. It's just people fucking talking over each other, being like Ponzi pricks and just trying to be the centre of attention a lot of the times. And I remember even seeing someone, when the Reform MP was standing up, I think, someone actually name called him. I can't remember what they said, but it was quite funny to hear. Yeah, it's like, the thing is, Parliament isn't professional, and people sort of view it as that way for some reason in outside the UK. But it's not. It's all a joke as well. And Parliament is, I think, always been a problem as far as I've known it. It's the most uninteresting thing to children and teenagers, and equally, it's also one of the worst places, I think. I remember there's actually a weird thing about that. I think it was like a school or something. They got to go on a trip around Parliament. I don't know why. It was a really fucking weird story, but I think it was like an MP was offering it. So like, some lucky kids got to go. Well, unlucky. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I also wonder if I knew any of those kids. It's kind of an interesting thing to think about. What if they actually became MPs? Or anyone? I don't know. It's weird to think about that actually. Like, where are the people I knew in school? I'd be quite curious to know, but at the same time, I might be just cursed because it'll just show weird things. But anyway, that's about it, so let's move on. Oh, well, this is something I've been thinking about. Yeah, I was sort of reminded of it from the police videos I'm watching, the body cam footage. And a lot of the times it's like someone young or someone who's a son of someone, and sometimes it's a bit older. But I find it very interesting because I think a lot of the times people are really not sure about what is the actual cause of these things. But I think that the cause is quite obvious sometimes, but also not, because it isn't always that simple, and that's why there was some literal, what do you fucking call it? I got distracted by Bluesky. Literally bad parenting, or it could be just other factors like bad friends or a bad situation. There are different ways that it can work and happen. And yeah, it's very bizarre, but this is the reality. You know, some of the shit is like quite obvious, and again, some of it's not. But people assume the same thing every time. And I find it so infuriating because it's like you can't judge a book by its cover. You know, one of the body cam footages I watched is I saw that some people were having like a party in some sort of river, and they weren't the brightest people, admittedly. But a lot of people were just saying in the comments, despite the stabbing, obviously they didn't deserve it. But people saying, that this is literally bad parenting, because these people, these kids, like these like 18, probably a bit older in areas, but they're literally provoking this older guy there who somehow was invited or something. Not sure why he ended up there, but they're calling him a predator and stuff, and he started to get really sort of angry as they got physical with him because honestly, why was he there? And it just really backfired because it basically caused the guy to stab them. And again, a lot of the comments were saying this is bad parenting. Calling out someone for being a predator is not bad parenting. It's called being reasonable. But other bits, I think the behaviours, yes, I think that can be attributed to bad parenting, but it isn't always. And I know from my own experience in school, being around many different weird people, strange people, some of which actually were arrested, I think, at some point or another. It's not always that simple. Like, my friend was Paul. He was arrested a few times, I think, but not for anything serious. But he was caught smoking once, and he gave it up like shortly after, which is good. So he does put his focus into games and military stuff, which is good. It's not a bad thing. I don't know where he is now, obviously. Really been in contact in a long time, and the last thing I think we talked about was actually a lynching thing, which was quite horrific, and I didn't really like that. At that time, I had never been exposed to that. It was sort of my first exposure to SFL sort of things, but I think it was just more of a violent thing. And we had a kind of disagreement on it. But because of the contents, that was mainly it. But the other friends, I don't know where they are. But basically, upbringing doesn't always mean bad, because his father seemed okay. I thought he was a bit dodgy at first, a bit violent towards my friend, but he seemed okay overall. Like when he came to answer the door when I was around to get my friend for his GCSEs, like fuck's sake. This throws me back. You know, I was literally walking around there to pick him up, and his dad was like, "Get up!" like shouting. He didn't seem like a guy boy or bad guy by any means. So, it's just strange in that sense. But yeah, not seemingly a bad parent. The mother, though, maybe a bit sort of iffy areas, like she was a big smoker, and she also sounded like looked like she had too much to drink or something. But I hate to say that because she was nice to me, but I just get that impression, even at that age, like 13 to 16, I got that impression from her. But it's kind of sad as well. But that doesn't really explain why his behaviour was kind of bad at times. Yeah, it wasn't violent to people, he wasn't making fights, picking fights. In fact, he was the one picked on, which really demonstrates one of the issues, I think. It's real bad sometimes. It was always traumatising me, actually, on the days where we're going to math class and then one of our other friends, or sort of neutral friends, would say, not neutral, but neutral, literally, just came up crying with him, like beside her, him literally crying because his eyes have been fucking almost gouged out by his dickheads in a year below. And obviously, this neutral friend, who was a girl, being quite traumatised by the idea. Yeah, and one of the teaching assistants, I think, I had actually ended up escorting him to the medical, because they need to know the excuse, they need to know why they're not in class, and that's why. Well, actually, no, I think it was the other way around. I think she escorted him to the medical, and then obviously the teaching assistant could relay and prove that he was actually severely injured. Yeah, the sort of thing is like the bad parenting comes with people who've been that violent. If there's children who've been that violent. So my friend definitely didn't deserve that, as I knew him. Again, he wasn't some arsehole trying to pick on people, trying to beat them up. He didn't even treat me differently because of my autism, which honestly a lot of children would have. And if I were trying to be friends with them. And they sort of did in a way. They sort of did mistreat me, the other kids in the school. But now going back to the crime thing. Again, it's not Ronnie's upbringing, it's just bad situations. I know I've had my experience of it before, where I've come out of like bad sort of friend areas, friend zones, whatever you call it. And, you know, it plays on my mind because one of the things that's quite striking to me is these friends just seem very sort of bad. Like they're, in a weird way, they just weren't great. They were just into weird things that obviously I wouldn't agree with, and some bits maybe bordering illegal, but this was so long ago, there's nothing to pursue there. So I can't even report it, even if I were to go round them out. But, you know, I think they should just live with those consequences either way. Because, as I said, bad crowds I've seen, not safe for life content, it's just bad. Some of the most horrible shit on the internet, and it really does play on your mind. It's a bit different to body cam footage. Although I've seen some bad body cam footage, to be fair. Obviously, they accidentally killed a child, that was one of them. Yeah, but as I said, the parenting isn't always the full picture. You can have good parents in a bad situation or a bad mental health issue. There's always a possibility it happens. In the same way that people unfortunately come out being like paedophiles or having paraphilic disorders, it's the same thing. Again, it's nothing to do with parenting. You know, if every parent was aware that they could be carrying on like a fucking, I don't know, paraphilia gene, I don't think most parents would accept that, and they'd obviously try to get rid of it somehow, or treat it as the only other option if you can't get rid of it. But again, it's just rough, and you can't really address it that easily. I'm trying to think what the other thing was with that. Obviously, I think it's important. You really need to see that sort of thing happen, I guess. Again, it's not the full story. It's just one of these things, I guess. It's a shame, as it really should be a thing, I guess. Yeah. I don't really have anything else to add. I'm gonna settle down and watch someone play Moral Rocks. Actually, I know about that stream, actually. Kind of in this with a wholesome thing. Sweet Anita. I heard of her through Healthy Gamer GG at first. And I think sorry if the pronoun's wrong. Let's see. Don't see anything. No, just Janice, just strong left. So I don't know. But yeah, she's playing Marvel Rivals, which is looking interesting. I'm not really into the game, but I'll watch her. I also found out apparently she's vegan, which is a surprise because you know, I wouldn't have expected. You know, I know a lot of us disabled people, mental health issues and mental illness, do have a lot more empathy for others because of our obviously circumstance. There's not always a thing, sadly, in these communities, and I think it's just a case of education and connecting the dots. And I think it's also kind of a thing based on culture too. I know a lot of Americans sadly just, they go fucking nuts with their mental health issues and never get any help because of the system they're in. But it's different depending on where you are, I think. Some people recognise it and treat it for ease, some people just don't. And that becomes its own issue. Anyway, I don't mean to end on that note, but let's move on. I don't nearly discuss as much music as I probably should, but I'm going to discuss this because I think it's kind of cool. It's kind of interesting to go through, and it'll be interesting to look at. And because I've heard like rock bands and stuff before, plenty of them, I used to listen to a few of them in college. And there's just some interesting things around them that I just like, and there's like rock and pop, but some of it borders rock, I think, when it comes to pop music, obviously. So it's sort of hard to mention, but I will mention two bands that may not be on my playlist for some reason. And that's for like one reason or another. Dire Straits, obviously Mark Knopfler, very fucking talented. But I quite like Money for Nothing. It's probably one of my favourite riffs by Mark. And yeah, it's just so iconic. Like you can't go wrong with it, even with a banger like Sultans of Swing and even some of the more underrated ones that there are. I've heard everything that he's produced, but sadly it links to a fucking housemate of mine who was a bit of a dickhead, so it's kind of spoiled on me, that is, because it was his recommendation. So yeah, it's kind of sad, but there's also the Beatles, which I do want to listen to potentially at some point. And I struggle to really decide on which one I like more, because I heard a few Beatles songs, I haven't heard everything. I remember Yellow Submarine, Hey Jude, what's the other two? The big ones I was going to talk about. Can't Buy Me Love and Can You Feel the Sunshine? Was it? Here Comes the Sun, that's it. But I think it would have to be Here Comes the Sun. It's one of the most sort of upbeat riffs, surprisingly. It's also probably one of the more complex tracks, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I have to mention those, they're good. Anyway, let's go for a list and see. So, Four Non-Blondes, I think that's just one of them. Obviously, One Up, What's Up, pretty famous, and then Only 38 Special song I've heard, Hold On Lucy, that's pretty good. Flock of Seagulls, only one I've heard, Iran, So Far Away. It's a classic. AC/DC, Hell's Bells, probably one of my favourites. You might think like Thunderstruck because I'm a metalhead, but actually Hell's Bells is quite great because it's like a symphonic track. It's honestly really good. Aerosmith, that's actually a tough one because I actually like a few of the Aerosmith tracks. You probably think also I'd like Dream On better than anything else, but actually it'd have to be Pink. I don't know why, but that song is just like, it's bizarre but it's good. That's why I like it so much. So yeah, it's interesting. What's the next one? I'm trying to look. Who's Alana Miles again? Oh, Black Velvet, yes, this is all I'm thinking of. Yeah, I like Black Velvet, it's the only one I've heard, but it's an amazing track. Solo, the stuff, the pacing of it is just so fucking good. Let's see who else. Alice Cooper, Blacklist. I'm not gonna talk about him, he's a fucking transphobe. Ooh, Alien Ant Farm, do we count that as classic? No, I don't really do. I'd say like 80s and 90s is about high classic rock, I guess, as far as it goes. And it's obviously trying to ignore things. America, A Horse With No Name, yes. Easily one of the best tracks ever made. I fucking love that track, I've listened to it and learned it so many times. It's interesting because I only really heard it again recently and I just got onto a state with that, of trying to learn it, because it's just that good. Who else is there? Trying to go through the list. Nope, not finding it. Bill of Weathers? I'm not sure if he's rock though. Billy Idol, yes. Probably White Riding. I like Rebel Yell, but White Riding's actually pretty good. I can't remember how old his tracks are. Don't feel we count Black Sabbath, because they're sort of the one who spearheaded metal. But the most rock sounding track is probably, oh, what's that album? Black Sabbath, Sons of the Universe, is it? Or Sabotage, is it? That's the album. I need to look that up, because there's one track I really like, because it's kind of got a rock feel to it. Hole in the Sky, I think it was. Yeah, I really like that one. It's one of the most underrated tracks, I think. It's just different. That's what I like about it. They also have a jazzy one, I think, which is weird. It's almost like winning music. It's such a bizarre track, I can't remember what it's called now. Let's go for more Bluesky cult, yes. I don't know, it has to be Don't Fear the Reaper, it's a classic. Bon Jovi? Yeah, I suppose so, like, I think I'd have to say, like, obviously Living on a Prayer is like the classic one. So yeah, going through the list still, Bryan Adams, I Called Her On To You, it's probably one of my favourite tracks. Bush, I'm not sure if they count, but I do really like Machine Head. I think that's one of my favourite tracks. It's so, because I thought it was like a dubstep track at first when I first ever heard it on Rocksmith. It turns out it's not. I was like, what the hell? How is that even possible? Yeah, classic like Buzzcocks, Ever Fallen in Love. It's great. I've a surprising amount of rock on here, which is interesting. Christina Aguilera, no, that's a pop musician. Christopher Cross, Ride Like the Wind, has to be. I might as well throw Saxon out there. Ride Like the Wind cover, both amazing. Is anyone else? Cinderella? Sort of like the hair rock sort of band. I'm not sure. I haven't heard enough to really decide on them. Anyone else? Cyndi Lauper? Don't know if it counts. Cutting Crew? Not sure if I count them. I know they're classic rock, but they're more pop music as well. David Bowie, yes. I think China Girl was probably my favourite. Just had a vibe to it that I really liked. It was much like a Let's Dance. But I think China Girl was probably one of the most underrated in terms of Bowie's stuff. Deep Purple, that's a tough one actually. Smoke on the Water's overrated. I like it, but it's overrated. Probably Hush. I think Hush was probably one of my favourites. It had such an interesting sort of opening, I think, and some different types of riffs. Let's see, who else? I can't find anyone. Don Johnson, who counts as more of a rock artist, but obviously Heartbeat, quite famous. Donkey Kong? No, that's not a rock band. That's a... What Donkey Kong track do I even have? Hang on. Is it Aquatic Ambience? Nope, it's actually a cover. Tournament Arc. Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy Kong's Quest, Dicker Bush Symphony. I heard this on Games Done Quick. Actually a pretty decent track. Didn't know they could be that good. Dream Theater I kind of count as rock, even though they're metal. But I think Afterlife is probably one of my favourite older tracks before they obviously made a really good album recently. Duran Duran, that's a classic. I'll say Ordinary World, but also really like Reflex. I think they're pretty good. Ordinary World was on the Rocksmith DLC, I think. That's when I first heard it. Let's see, anyone else? Still looking. Europe. Oh my god, Europe. I actually listened to every album they did, and they had some decent tracks. I think I have two favourites because it's really hard. Stormwind. Actually, three. Winds of Tomorrow. And Aphasia. These tracks are fucking amazing. It's so much better than Final Countdown. Even though Final Countdown is good, but these are just amazing. It's such an underrated band, I think, for those tracks anyway. See if Faith No More, I don't really listen to them, so maybe not. Fort Troy, I kinda don't want to mention them because they're fucking weird. The only song I like is actually about taking away sexual protection, which is just weird. Fucking bunch of weirdos. I don't even know anymore. Fleetwood Mac, oh yes. I fucking love Fleetwood Mac. There's also the classics like Go Your Own Way and Dreams, but Everywhere's really good. But I think I like Dreams. I think Dreams probably is my favourite one. There's such a calm sort of vibe to it. Focus, Hocus Pocus, that's probably my favourite, it's the only one I've heard. Foo Fighters, I don't know, I'm pretty sure Dave Grohl was cancelled, but if we're going by his past, I guess it might have to be My Hero. But Learning to Fly is also very good, I don't know if that's classic though. Foreigner, oh yes, Waiting for a Girl Like You, that's my favourite one. Franz Ferdinand, that's actually a 2000 one, but I like Take Me Out. Free, alright now, that's the only one I've heard. Fuel, all these names, Hemorrhage obviously is the only one I've heard. Funeral for a Friend, I can't remember this one. I've apparently listened to a lot of tracks, but I can't remember this band for some reason. I know it's from Burnout Paradise, that's as much as I know. I can't remember anything about them, sadly. Genesis, oh god. Land of Confusion, obviously. It's the only one I've heard, and it's quite popular. I've heard other Genesis tracks, but I can't remember the names. Anything else? Jerry Rafferty, Baker Street, obviously, is the only one I've heard. Jim Blossoms, it's from Rocksmith. A Jealousy. Goldfinger, Punk Rock, obviously 99 Red Balloons, very popular cover. I don't remember this guy, Greg Howell. Oh yeah, it's a jazz track. I remember. Hall & Oates, oh damn. Guns N' Roses actually, yeah. Weird fact, people will probably hate me for this, but I actually really like November Rain. It's such a progressive track, it's actually kind of insane. There's also Don't Cry, which I quite like. And the first riff I ever learned was actually Sweet Child of Mine, I think. It was a complex riff at the time, but I got it. All Notes, obviously, Out of Touch, You're Out of Time, Thief and Cowards Rock. Heart, oh yes, this one. For some reason, wait, I think it was yes actually. But I like Cities Burning, I heard that on Rocksmith. What's Howard's Kill? Yeah, that is a modern track. Remember that's a meme. Ian Van Dam, who's that? Castles in the Sky? It's probably a jazz track actually. No, actually, I think it's an electronic track. Yeah, it is. I remember now. Initial D, oh god. They had a few good tracks, but obviously running in the 90s as classic, sort of not rock though. Who's Intense? Only You. Oh, that answers a lot. Iron Attack, I've already made, yeah. Iron Maiden, do we count? I guess. So for earlier tracks, I have to go with something from Killers actually. I kind of like, I'm trying to think of the track now. Killers had a lot of good tracks, I think. I wish I could remember the name of it. But I think one of my favourite tracks overall, not from Killers though, because I can't remember the other one. I don't know, it might have to be like Caught Somewhere in Time, because that was like a really different sort of album. Anyway, next band, Jack Johnson. Upside. Oh, yeah, I know. Weird story about this. I actually saw a movie as a kid in school because we had like a final year assembly or something for half term or something, and we had like a movie on, and people picked Curious George for some reason. I didn't focus on it. For some reason, kept going back and forth. I went like in and out of the hall as I was showing that, and for some reason, I was able to sit there just as a song was playing. It's called Upside Down. It's one of the more upbeat tracks, but also really fucking emotional. It's kind of crazy actually. But I always remember that track. It's so strange. Assuming this is Jack Johnson, was it Eric Johnson? I would have seen Eric Johnson actually. Next, Jane's Addiction, don't remember, so I can't comment. Jason Becker, oh yes, Jason Becker is amazing. There's one I really like, Mabel's Fatal Fable, that's it. Really interesting solo. Who's Jeff Wayne? Evil of the Wall, I don't know what that is. Jeff's an airplane August, classic. Probably White Rabbit is the one for drugs. I only know that because it's about drugs. And Somebody to Love is also really good. It's just got a great beat to it. Jermaine Stewart, who's that? I can't remember some of these. Oh yeah, it's a pop artist. Joangel Taylor, no reason to say, I can't remember her. Joey Bonamassa, the only one I heard is Slow Gin, it's a great song. Joey Satriani rather. Probably Circles, one of the more interesting tracks, and If I Could Fly is also really good. So two of my favourites. Johnny Cash obviously got hurt, that's the only one I know. Johnny Winter, Be Careful with a Fall, don't remember that. Jonathan Young, Tears of, oh, it's a cover. So, this one's a jazz, I remember that. Journey, oh, what a fucking throwback. My favourite track is probably something you probably never even heard of. I'll Be Alright Without You, maybe? There's also Wind and Sky and Who's Crying Now. It's like, yeah, I like songs that aren't even the popular ones. Because I listen to these fucking bands every now and then, and they have bangers. Judas Priest, it's a tough one, because obviously Painkiller is like a milestone, but that's later. I'd have to say, like, either Breaking the Law or The Sentinel. Probably two of my favourites ever. And there's also You Got Another Thing Coming. And Electric Eye as well, there's so many fucking good tracks, you can't pick one. Yeah, just really like some of that. Kansas. Obviously I only heard a few. Carry On My Wayward Son. Probably my favourite, obviously. Kenny Loggins. Obviously it's going to be Danger Zone, but they've also got I'm Free, which is from the GTA 5 soundtrack, I think. Also GTA 6, oh, Predicted to the Future. King Harvest, I'm not sure if they count as rock, but throw a shout out to Dancing in the Moonlight, which I think is a cover of a fucking original. Because I think Top Loaders is a cover of this, and theirs is a cover of something else, which is interesting, if I've heard it correctly. So I can't remember. So yeah, it's very interesting. So for more, who the hell's the voice? Again, I find these random artists, I don't know who that is. Lionel Richie, that's a pop artist. These I don't remember who they are. It's, yeah, your own worst enemy, that's probably my own worst enemy rather. Everyone knows that. Loverboy, Working for the Weekend, obviously, classic. Saints Row 2 soundtrack, I believe, was it? Saints Row 3, it's one of them. I remember that quite well. Leonard Skinner Nurse is an interesting one because I do like their music, but I haven't heard it all. But I really like one I heard in Rocksmith Plus, which was Simple Man. It's like a working class people's fucking track, and it's based on, well no, it's not based on, Metallica based something on it. I can't remember what track it was, but it sounds so eerily similar. It's like one of the Unforgiven tracks, I believe, like other 2 or 3. Could have been the one. It's so interesting to hear that. So yeah, I really like that. Who's Magnum? Days Off, No Trust, not sure who that is. Marillion obviously has to be Kaylee, I think the track is. Apparently also like Easter, I don't know what that one, this artist is exactly. Maxine, that sounds like a rock artist, Please, is the track, I can't remember. Who's McFadden and Whitehead? Going through my playlist, what the fuck? Ain't no stopping us now, I think I've heard that then. Fly, I know this one, 5 Colours, McFly. Meatloaf, Bow Hell, obviously, don't need to look into that. Men at Work, obviously. The famous one, Down Under. Michael Jackson, I guess it counts. I quite like Beat It. I think the Van Halen stuff was good, but Beat It is probably the most classic one. But also like Dirty Diana. I'm not sure if it counts as rock though. That's one of my favourite tracks. That's actually one of the few albums I had is Michael Jackson's Bad. Also had an Axl F album. Yeah, I used to listen to that. Anyone else? Looking. Ooh, okay, we're getting to some interesting stuff here. Motley Crue, not sure if they count. But I quite like Live Wire, it's probably one of my favourite tracks. Motorhead, probably the one that I've highlighted before, which is Marching Off the Wall. It's one of the most interesting tracks, like composition wise, solo wise. Yeah, even just vocal wise and the meaning, it's good. Mountain, Mississippi Queen, can't remember them. Sorry, burping. Nickelback, nope. No doubt, no, that's a pop artist. Let's see, anyone else? Still looking. Full Engagement, Push It to the Limit. So yeah, that's a famous one. Do I even Phil Collins, Easy Love on that? That one's good. Pixies, that's one of the few tracks I heard. Where's My Mind? It's good. Placebo, I don't remember them. The Bitter End, I don't know. That is Poison. Oh, Poison. Nothing but a good time. I don't remember that either. Prince, obviously, Purple Rain. But also, actually, no, this is another track. When Doves Cry, I love that track. It's in Stranger Things season 5, I believe. That's a metal band. Puddle Mod. I can't remember this. It's a funny cover by them, I think. Blurry. But that's a track I like. Queen. Oh yes, Queen. Innuendo. That's probably my favourite. Because it's just such a unique track. It's got elements of like metal in it as well, and also like flamenco, which I fucking really like. And it's such a different track. It's bizarre as well in areas. It's kind of crazy. Queens of the Stone Age. I'm not sure about these guys. Apparently, I liked HYPERSKY. Queensrock. Oh, that's a tough one because Queensrock is actually really good. Probably The Art of Life. That was probably one of the most noticeable tracks. REM, Losing My Religion. Radiohead, oh god. Creep was probably the best one. High and Dry I really liked. That's one I got in there. Rainbow. Rainbow was previously with Dio as a bass player and vocalist, I believe. I can't remember much about Rainbow other than Man on the Silver Mountain. That one's pretty famous. Rat, very underrated hair metal band, by the way. I think hair metal. I think I quite liked Body Talk and Lay It Down. There's other tracks in there too, not many. Oh, Red Hot Chili Peppers, yes. Very interesting band. I actually like Quick So Tireless, that's a 2000s track. That Saviour is also really good. I'm trying to think of an earlier one. I can't remember. No, I can't remember any. Sadly. There definitely was some. Right. Was right. Narita and Road Racing. I'm sure who Robot Sons is again. There's so many. Some of these are from long ago. Open My Eyes is. Robert Plant. The only one I heard was Big Long. It's sort of a chill track. Robert Tepper, No Easy Way Out. I most recognise that. Rotting Christ, that is not a rock band. Rupert Holmes, oh yes. Escape. The Pina Colada song. Rush, now we get into interesting territory. I quite like some Rush tracks like Working Man. I've also got Big Money, Free Will, Force 10, Fly By Night. Pretty iconic. Apparently I have a Sanctuary track. Band I was originally going to name myself, Battle Angels. I think that's metal actually. Santana, this is interesting. Due to Armor is really good. Very underrated. So you got Saxon there, just said them earlier. Scorpions. I can't remember what Scorpions tracks are like other than famous ones like Hurricane, No One Like You. Still Loving You is probably the best one. I remember that being quite melodic. There were solos and the progression is good. What else? There's so many random things. It's Sheryl Crow. Not really rock, but all I want to do. Shine Down. At least that's that. Miracle. Shocking Blue. This Venus. That's not a rock track though. Silent Drive. 4 of 16. I don't remember that. Silver. I barely remember them. All I want to do is going to be alright. Wham Bang. Oh yeah, I remember them actually. They're famous for that track. Wham Bam. Shaggy. Silverstein, White Heroine, Skeleton Switch. Don't remember this. Maybe Metal, Soul Thrashing. Yeah, you can tell by the names sometimes. Skid Row, You've Gone Wild. Just try and speed it off a bit. Soundgarden, obviously Black Hole Sun. But I think pretty Noose. What the hell? Slaves and Borders. I don't remember these. I have one Spinal Tap song, Stonehenge, I sort of remember that. Still Panther, Eyes of the Panther, yep. That was a classic. Steely Dan, I have one, Reeling in the Years, I believe that's called, yep. Steve Vai, actually. I quite like The Crying Machine, but Erotic Nightmares is also really good. I also like Rebuilding the Church. I can't remember what year that was. Stevie Nicks, obviously, Edge of 17 is classic, but I prefer I Can't Wait. What else? Look at pop tracks again. Styx, I don't remember these, but Blue Collar Man apparently liked Sugar Cult, Dead Living, Sungazer. Oh yeah, Sungazer's the jazz band, sort of. Survivor, oh, interesting one, I like Burning Heart more than Eye of the Tiger. Who Stood Down? Strings and Strings. Oh, I think I know what that is actually. Sort of classic tracks played on like British sitcoms. Anyone else? Tears of Fears. Tears for Fears are actually kind of underrated. Surprisingly, not many people know their tracks, and they have some really good ones out there. They did like Mad World, I think they're the original one actually. They also did like Shout, which is pretty famous, I believe. I think it's Shout. But also Everyone Wants to Rule the World is great. I think there are some other good ones, I just can't remember. Tenacious D, obviously Tribute, but I quite liked, what was that other one, the Beelzebus? I think it's Beelzebus actually. It's probably one of my favourites. Tesla, Love Song, Modern Day Cowboy, don't remember them. Texas, Summer Sun, it's not really rock though, or is it? Oh, the Alan Parsons Project. Obviously, I wouldn't want to be like you, but High in the Sky is also really good. The Animals, this is an old one. Listened to them a while ago. House of Rising Sun. I quite like Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood. Another classic. Automatic, Monster. Oh yeah, I remember them. What's that coming over the hill? It's a Monster. The Beach Boys. God only knows, yep. I remember that from Bioshock Infinite. They do have the Beatles here. I also have Day Tripper. That's a really good one as well. Charleston. That's not rock, that's classic. Church, Reptile. Don't remember them. Oh, The Clash. The Casbah, obviously, but London's Calling, really good. One of the tracks I'm going to listen to in the future. Obviously, The Coral, I've got In the Morning, it's a great track. The Cause, What Can I Do? It's a classic like radio track, but it's also kind of sad. The Cribs. I've listened to a lot of niche bands here. I can't remember what the Cribs did. The Girls Like Mystery. That was kind of fun. It's the only one I can remember for some reason. Not the famous one. We Share the Same Skies. That's the other one. I really like that. Quite an interesting track. The Cult. Ooh, Firewoman, Little Devil, Rain, She Sells Sanctuary. Probably Firewoman for me. The Cure, Friday Night in Love, that's the only one I've heard. Darkness, Believe in a Thing Called Love. Also Friday Night, apparently. Foundations, there's so many with like the in the name. Build Me Up Buttercup, I remember that, that's good. Greg Carlton Band, Breakup Song. Jimi Hendrix, yes. All Along the Watchtower, classic. Probably my favourite one, but also I like pretty much everything. There's so many interesting tracks like Purple Haze, Voodoo Chill, Child, Another Wind Cries of Mary, Crosstown Traffic, Castles Made of Sand. So many interesting ones. Who else? The Police. Oh, I don't know. I think Message in the Bottle is probably my favourite Police song. It's just such an interesting track. I remember learning that. Smashing Pumpkins, oh yeah, Zero, probably one of the heavier ones actually, like rock music. They still make music. I also like Avert or Blue with Butterfly Wings. Can't remember the others. Stranglers, oh yeah, Golden Brown. They also had No More Heroes, which is kind of interesting. Strokes, I remember them. Machu Picchu, severely underrated. Such a unique track, but Undercover of Darkness is good. You can't really argue against that, and You Only Live Once is also really good. Whispers, who is that? And The Beat Goes On, I remember now. I remember by the title, if not the band. The White Stripes, Icky Thump, and Seven Nation Army. I don't know. Zombies, obviously. Time of the Season. Pretty famous one. Thin Lizzy, oh, Thin Lizzy is good. Such a classic. Whiskey in the Jar is really good. Waiting for an Alibi. So The Boys in Black in Town. Jailbreak, extremely good. Kids on the Loose. Yeah, there's some classics there. Thrice? Do we count Thrice? Can't remember if they're modern, but might as well mention them. Stare at the Sun, but I like Artists in the Ambulance, probably one of my favourite. Tomcat, who's that? Okuto no Ken, it's probably a Fistful of North Star. Somehow I remember that. Because there's some classic tracks in that. In the movie, I mean. I didn't even know that was a series. Anyone else? Toto, oh my god. Another underrated band. I can't believe people haven't actually listened to them. But I quite like Hydra. It's one of my favourites, surprisingly. Even though Hold the Line is fucking amazing. Charles Appleton is pretty good, even though quite simple. Geordie Porgy is actually a weird one, but it's good. I Won't Hold You Back. I somehow recognise that for some reason. I can't remember where. But it's certainly a band worth listening to. Anyone else? I have to mention an old Transformers track. Transformers the movie Line. The Transformers theme by Line. That is a fucking classic. It's a banger. It's one of the best tracks ever. Not gonna lie. Twisted Sister, fuck them. Weirdo Christian bollocks. Also a transphobe, I think. So yeah, not a nice person. The front man at least. U2. U2? No, that's something else. I can't remember U2 for some reason, but I don't really want to. Bono's kind of weird. What's UI70? Oh yeah, is this this is Toho, yeah, maybe it doesn't count. Anyone else? Van Halen, oh, Ain't Talking About Love, it's a fucking classic, I fucking love the intro on that. It's so fucking good, but also like hot for teacher for some reason. Brings back memories. Van McCoy, I also sort of remember that's not rock, so it's jazz versus 6am Salvation. I don't remember that, it's from Rocksmith. Queen, oh yeah, Ocean Man, Weezer. I've actually listened to Weezer for some reason. I've got quite a few here. I think that's what the song is a classic, saying it's so classic. Island in the Sun is probably my favourite because it's such a different track. It's also quite upbeat. Apparently it's supposed to be for like a Mexican wedding in the music video, but they changed it to be like a hang out with monkeys for some reason. Just a very interesting choice, sure. Let's go with it. But better than the wedding, I will admit. White Snake. Ooh, I swear there was one I really liked. Some reason I remember listening to this. My grandparents, I don't know why. I think Looking for Love is probably my favourite one. Such a different vibe to some of the others. Anyone else? Getting to the lower parts now. Who's YNT, Mean Streak? Don't know that. Yellow Card, I have to mention. Yellow Card is kind of hard to pick because they have such good tracks from obviously having like a violin, or is it fiddle? I can't remember. But they have a violinist slash fiddler. Oh god. No. Cut the last part. Or not. It's too funny. They have good tracks. So I can't really mention a specific one. Oh yeah, yes. Oh no, the Lonely Heart or Roundabout. Yeah, they're good. Guy Malmsteen, sadly he's a fucking dickhead. I think a lot of the older stuff with vocals are actually kind of good. First heard like Black Star and that was all over YouTube. It's hard to pick one actually though. Did a cover of Gimme Gimme? What the hell? Or is that not a cover? I don't know. I think Queen in Love is the only one I can remember for some reason. It's not even on the list for some strange reason. There's definitely some tracks there. And I think that's all actually. That's all the artists. So yeah, there's a lot to go through, but you know, it's just looking at like rock and classic rock. I do have an appreciation for it. People probably will say it like, oh, how can you just be a metalhead? It's just boring. Well, not. Metal is my primary genre, but it's not the only thing I listen to. If it was, I wouldn't have any fucking creativity. You know, some of the most unique bands out there that I listen to are not even rock, necessarily. Polyphia probably is, in a way, it's almost metal as well. Animals as Leaders, kind of more metal, but they also kind of got a, I don't know what you call it, sort of vibe. It's so different, you can't really describe Animals as Leaders. But this is exactly what I mean. Sometimes you just can't describe these. But yeah, it's also important to sort of appreciate the ones who came before us, before modern music, before these people. Obviously it goes down the line, obviously they're inspired by classical, they're inspired by sort of medieval music or lack thereof. And yeah, obviously there's like classic tracks I like too. I think that Deja for Strings is probably one of the most darker tracks, as if Funeral March wasn't bad enough. But Deja for Strings is like crazy. I remember hearing that on The Simpsons actually. I'd almost made a cover for it as well, but I ended up not doing that because it's kind of hard to do. Because it's such a slow track, it has a BPM of like 20 or something. It's fucking crazy. I'm not even sure how you're supposed to play that. Let alone make it into a metal. Other than like, potentially like making the BPM a lot higher, like quadrupling it maybe. But I don't know. Anyway, let's move on. So this is almost definitely a repeated topic, but I feel like it most goes without mentioning, it should be mentioned. As I'm watching a Channel 4 documentary where they went undercover in the far right spaces, they keep bringing up this shit about women being raped by immigrants and stuff, and like, I get it. People are scared of that, and it is a horrible thing to have happen. But the way they go about it is not the right way at all. And in fact, to go with far-right politics for this very reason is actually to go against the victims. Because it means that prosecutions will be much lighter, because their politics involve things like not listening to women, not listening to children for that matter, who have been victims of this, and they'll just backfire. That is dangerous. So people have to really acknowledge here that you cannot ignore this shit. The far-right politics serve to absolutely devastate anyone who's a victim of these crimes. And that is not obviously the right way to go about it. You only have to look at their manifestos to see this. But wherever they're compromising women or child safety, that's where there will be problems. But the other thing I know is that it's all based on misinformation when it's portrayed out there. Essentially that means there isn't any validity to these claims, which really doesn't work in your favour, by the way. And you really need to stop campaigning under the guise of hate, because this doesn't help anyone. And as we've seen, it backfires drastically. Like, you have people who are so hateful that they themselves end up being these rapists and abusers. So it doesn't change a thing, which is why I think this is important to bring up, because nothing will change if you just keep going this route of looking at the far right as the solution, whatever it is they're campaigning. And if we were to even look at this from a perspective of geopolitics, which I think is important, by the way, we would be the laughing stock of the entire world if we somehow got in a far-right gun just because someone believed a news story that sparked an entire, or sparked the catalyst, whatever, for this entire anti-migration movement, on top of the rise of the right. You know, we'll be the laughing stock, like America is at the moment. So you have to think about the consequences of your actions when you do this stuff. Think long and carefully. You've got, what, 3 more years until the next election. The general election, that is. So people really need to sit down and think about it. In a positive way, though, I've seen something recently which has certainly made me curious, but the reform and restore bots are not as prevalent anymore in social media, which is good, but it's still an issue. But I think that generally shows dishonesty. Because if you need bots to campaign for you, that shows that your position is compromised. You shouldn't need bots to fucking campaign for your own thing. It should stand on its own legs. That's how campaigns have always worked. You know, sadly with something like Trump, I'm not sure if bots were involved, but I know that his campaign was effective, even though he ended up being completely wrong about it and not doing anything. But the entire campaign around caring about the cost of living and stuff, and caring about the prices and working class people, it worked. And sadly, the entire thing around hating a minority for what their minority does, it is just insane. It's not factual, it's not helping anyone, it's not protecting women and children or anyone. It's not even protecting your interests. So why even follow them? You have to apply critical thinking to these situations and find out what the right party is. Yeah, I already hear people saying like, oh, well, you're just a leftist, aren't you? You're just a socialist. That's because it's been made a fucking buzzword by your parties. By the ones on the right. By the ones who have other interests besides you. And the other interest, obviously, is money. It's things like the American government, the Israeli government, and the Russian government. All of those together, air for short, that's actually probably a good thing to call that, they all stand to fuck up the country worse and harm your women and children even more by forcing women into bad situations, worse ones than they're already in, forcing children into worse situations, which means both have an increase in crimes of sexual nature, being a victim or even a perpetrator, because that happens. Some adults literally traffic their children and prostitute them and whatever. That happens under terrible financial statuses, so what you need instead is a government where things can actually be done properly, so people who are responsible for these crimes are persecuted properly, children get the help they need as well as an education and a good life, and women too, wherever they need it, and we also have a better financial status, so we're actually better off in the long run. So we get the universal basic income, and wealth tax would support that. And oftentimes with the wealth tax, this is something that people don't mention, but it turns out the amount that we ask in the wealth tax is so minuscule that they think that it isn't even an issue when they're actually confronted with it, when you actually show them the numbers. And admittedly that's an anecdote, because it was only a short I saw on YouTube, someone showing tennis balls, and then inside them were smaller tennis balls. It shows you the amount that they think they've actually picked up, and inside was actually the like £10,000, whatever it is, like million, as this is a case, and it wasn't even that big of a deal. A lot of people are like, oh, okay, I can do that, that's no problem. So it just goes to show, you can't be believing everything the party who thinks, who you think is on your side are saying. You can't believe everything. So you have to stick your balls into multiple baskets. That's how you do it, or eggs into multiple baskets. There's always been a strategy I've adopted since learning critical thinking, and even just trying to be a better person in life in general, to get away from my past and my childhood. But a lot of that shit unfortunately started. Anyway, that's all I have for the podcast, so thanks for listening. I'll see everyone next time.